Hello, my name is Mike Graen. Welcome to the Supply Chain Management Research Council focused on-shelf availability. I'm your host today, and I'm joined today by Pierre Marie Rallu, who's the CEO of 1retailAI. They are a company that works very closely with SES Imagotag to understand on-shelf availability using computer images. Please join me with my conversation with Pierre. Well, let's go back to the solution that you offer. You've obviously done a lot of research about this. Tell us and we already talked about the fact that it's not just technology. There's a people component, there's a process component, there's a technology component. What's best practices? If somebody was trying to do computer vision to generate a list of out of stocks or incorrect products, et cetera, for their team, whether it's your solution or somebody else's, what are the best practices to utilize to put that in and make that work?
So, in the world of SES, for example, I mean, there is the world of, do we have, for example, ESLs or not on the shelf, and that's fine. But having ESLs, as you mentioned earlier, well, get the price and promotions, velocity, and things like that. But they also sync with the cameras, and it helps the cameras to always stay in sync. In the meantime, the AI algorithm are analyzing the products in near real time as well, so it can work in both worlds. In terms of how do we make that happen, the technology itself works. I mean, there's no problem, but on the fact that it's going to find your hole, it's going to work, or at least for the one I've tested and I know pretty well, the one within the CS framework, they work pretty well. So the technology works, but as I mentioned earlier, I mean, it's people, process, and technology. And having you can have the best tool in the world if you don't know how to use it, then it's pretty useless. So what we've seen is it's very important for a retailer and also for the vendor to work together. I mean, my team spent a lot of time in the store with the store managers, try to understand, for example, what's the day in the life of the before the technology. What's the day in the life look like? And you could imagine like every grocery store is the same. Wow, every grocery store is slightly different. Yeah. And the devil is in the details. So spending the time to understand the process, the existing process, and then looking at how the technology can actually bring the value. You don't need to bring a revolution. I mean, that you can start with an evolution, and then looking forward with multiple evolutions, you're gonna bring a revolution eventually. And the other thing which is super interesting with those technologies, and I'm looking at most of the in-store IoTs that we have, you can test them pretty easily. It doesn't require to have IT teams involved, having hundreds of interface and integration built. I mean, it can be light touch on the technology. It will be light touch on the technology, and then you can test in one store, or two stores, or a couple of stores to see the value. And today, a lot of, I mean, if you look at the spectrum of the retail in North America, boy, you have the biggest retailer in the world, but you also have a very large number of local retailers, I mean, small to mid-size, who might think they don't have the bandwidth to go with that kind of technology. But I mean, respectively, I mean, I've been in the software business for 20 years, and it's much easier to install, for example, a computer vision, a camera, and a computer vision, than having a perpetual inventory and store replenishment in place. Just because in terms of technology, in terms of data, it's much lighter touch to start with. It's easy to install, it's physical, you can see it, and you can see the result quickly. So best practice, I would say, well, first of all, try it. Don't feel free to try it. And the other thing is that cost-wise, we were not where we were 5 to 6 years ago. The technology 5 or 6 years ago was 3 times more expensive and was working a quarter or a tenth of what it does today. So we're in a much better place than we were 5 years ago. And there's a thing, and again, minimum investment in terms of IT and data. So I think that's something that's very important to keep in mind for all the retailers out there.
Okay, excellent. So you've told us what the best practices are. Again, promoting your Coca-Cola from your wife. That's awesome. A little friendly sponsorship there. What are the watch outs?
Another brand here, by the way. Just kidding.
What are the watch
Sorry.
out? What are the things that people do that get them into trouble? They try and leverage the technology, but they just make mistakes. What are some of the common mistakes you've seen been made when they're trying to implement these solutions?
Well, I think that, I mean, I've talked to retailers that have a very preconceived idea of what they wanted to achieve, and that was not exactly what the technology was designed for. And
Yep.
so trying to get out of the boundary is possible, but it requires a partnership.
Mhm.
Then you have to be ready to go through the journey of, I mean, exploring emerging technology boundaries, and it can be painful. I mean, believe me.
Mhm.
So, one of the boundaries to understand, okay, what are the existing business cases, what has happened out there, what works, call the other retailers, try to understand what they do, and what is being done. I think is one thing. The other thing is to go a step further and making sure you work with a partner, a vendor, that is going to spend the time with you, again, as mentioned, to get in the store, know your processes, know what happened. I mean, again, that type of technology, we're not in the cookie cutter type of technology where you implement, you do it. It's still a bit tailored. Doesn't have to take, I mean, months and weeks and months and things like that, but at least doing the initial assessment of what's your day-to-day, what's the impact on your process. Doesn't have to be huge, but needs to be done. I think that's important. The other thing is, as I mentioned, you can start with very limited data set. But what comes with very limited data set is limited business case in front of it. So, for example, if you put the camera, you feed the system with your list of products, okay, and then you're going to start crunching the data and give you, okay, where are the outs, okay. Well, technically, you can go on the shelf, scan yourself, and you see where the outs are, right? So it gives you that visibility without having to work the shelf, which is a great value already. Now, if you have the capability to feed the system with your inventory, well, it's going to benchmark what you have on the shelf
Mhm.
and what you're supposed to have on your shelf. And it's going to tell you, hey, go and check those 50 products because you have stock on that product, but it's empty on the shelf.
Mhm.
So they give you a much better business case because now you're narrowing the scope of the product that you need to check. Now, if you also feed the system, and I mean, these are relatively simple set of data, but if you're feeding the system with average sales, for example, now the system, instead of only telling you measurement around sorry, and out of stock duration, is going to give you potential lost sales, which is a
Mhm.
much better KPI than just the out of stocks, because having an out on a high velocity product, high margin product, is much more impacting than having an out on a product that doesn't turn.
Yep.
And so what you want to check is focusing on what is essential and what makes sense. And therefore, I mean, being able to get some of those data ready, you can unlock more business cases. And then after you can integrate the planogram, do the planogram compliance, you can do the price and promo checks and things like that. There's much more you can involve with that technology as well.
Yep. So I know that you know this person pretty well. So she's asking this question. I'm not, but Susie Montfort has asked, how do you track inventory that's in the back room?
Well, that's a very good point. So
That's
there
probably
are
why
multiple ways.
that's probably why she asked it. She's wicked smart in this spot. She spent a lot of time with
Exactly,
Kroger.
yeah.
She knew that was going to be a very tough question. So take it over to you.
Yeah, there are multiple ways to do it. I mean, well, of course, I mean, Suzy knows retail pretty well.
Yeah.
It's an euphemism. So the number one, I mean, problem in the grocery store, that you might know your quantity in hand, more or less. Usually balance on hand is no more accurate than 75-85%.
If that.
So, but
Yep.
yeah, if that you can know what you have on hand, but you don't know where this is in the store. And
Mm,
you have the back and the front, obviously. And on the front, you will have multiple locations. You have your end
right.
caps, you have your main location, your primary location. and maybe two secondary locations. So you might have multiple locations as well. So in knowing what you have in the what you have in the back is interesting, obviously, because that tells you what to transfer, when to transfer it, and things like that. Now, if you're in the warehouse with a very high in the grocery store, for example, with a very high velocity turn, the pallets comes from the warehouse or from the DSD. Those pallets are always multi-products, right? So they come in. Usually they come in, they go straight to the floor, and then they might come back with whatever leftovers are. But there are multiple type of retailers there. So if you have a standard grocery, I work with many grocery stores that have a very, very lean backroom. They really don't have a lot. And the policy is that, okay, if you have less than the case, it has to stay on the shelf. If you have more than the case, bring it back. If you bring it back on the case, then it can be organized on the backroom. And if the backroom is relatively well organized, then you can have different systems to measure the level of inventory you have in the backroom. And it doesn't have to be at the SKU because it's at the case, but at least you can recognize the case pack as you recognize the SKU on the front. So that's one possibility. And then you also have, depending on the type of retail, for example, if you look at a pharmacy, I'm very close to a very large chain of pharmacies, and their backroom are extremely well organized. So it's kind of easy to track what's in the back as soon as you get organized in the backroom. So understanding what's in the backroom, there are multiple. You can then after you can use scale depending on your type of retail. You can use cameras. There are many ways to measure, but ultimately it's a matter of labor versus return. It's always a matter of labor versus return. So for some categories, it can be really interesting. For some others, there's zero value to try to count what's in the back. Yep. So that's a little bit. And then the fact of scanning what's from the back to the front is extremely consuming. Nobody does that. We've tried that. It's extremely labor consuming, and that's not something which is possible. So ultimately, the idea is that keep in the back just your cases and things like that. Keep on the front when you need, but more importantly, get a much leaner, more accurate replenishment based on your balance on hand, so you don't have to keep much in the back. And so if your backroom is not packed and it's fairly empty, it's very easy to visually prepare everything. So after, it's a matter of organization.
Okay.
It was a tricky question, Susie.
Yeah, no, it was a good question. Very good question. So I would also argue, and I'd love to hear your reaction to this, I would also argue the retailer is not the only customer of this data. But as you mentioned direct store delivery. If I was Coca-Cola, I would love to know how much Coca-Cola is at the cooler at the front of the checkout, how much Coca-Cola is on the sales floor where it's supposed to be bought, how much is in the back room of the store before I ever arrive in the store. So do you see there's an opportunity to share some of this data with suppliers, whether they're direct store delivery or otherwise? Because that's insights of what's going on in the store that I don't think CPG companies have ever had before.
That's absolutely correct. No, the traction of the CPGs on that technology is massive. Okay. And again, most of the big CPG have used mobile CV, mobile computer vision, and AI and stuff like that. But having a consistent visibility and having an AI engine that recognizes each location, each product in each location in the store, and then can monitor, okay, what's the velocity of my shelf? How does it turn? What's my level of out? Another measure which is really interesting is the recurrence of the out, meaning is my merchandising appropriate? If a product is out twice a day, well, you have an issue. If the product is out 3 times a week, then you have a replenishment issue. And then doing those analytics is going to bring a huge amount of data to those CPGs. The thing is, if you look at the most of the DSD, I'm always shocked by the amount of DSD product that are in the back rooms. This is, I would say 50% of the back rooms for all the backrooms I see, almost 50% of the backroom is filled with DSD product. And yes, many of them are high velocity, I understand that, but that still seems a lot of inventory on the back road compared to what's coming from the warehouse, for example, or the distributor.
Yeah. Yep. Well, in a lot of cases, those direct store delivery folks are paid for and compensated based upon how much product that I move off of my truck to the store, whether it's on the back room or the sales floor. And I'm a firm believer in the problem with reward systems as they work, right?
I think we had this discussion 100,000 times now. So yeah, I mean, that's funny because every retailer is like, yeah, I know it's a problem, and
Yeah.
and that's interesting. Well, anyway, but
So
yes, so to come at your point, traction
yeah.
from CPG is huge, and what we see now, I mean, and looking at part of, for example, one of the things on the SCS platform is having a portal for the vendors to go and see those data, and APIs readily available for them to digest those data. So all of that's already packaged. I mean, where the retailer wants to see by department and categories and things like that, or the CPG will want to see his brands, and so it's a different vision. And for the retailer, there is obviously a monetization around that. Yep. Data is not free, right?
Yep. The way I think about it, I'm from Arkansas, so I'm a pretty simple thinker. Here's the way I think of it. A retailer should know exactly what they have, and they should know exactly where it's located in a retail store. But here's the but: without a single associate or person at the store collecting data. So I'm not scanning anything. I'm not wanting anything. I'm going to let your system work in conjunction with other systems to say, here's what I have, and here's where it's located at a high degree of accuracy. Not 60% accuracy, but 95% accuracy. Now, running AI engines to take that data and create tasks for the employee to go get that product and stock it because it's in the back room and not on the sales floor, or the Coke person, your wife works for Coca-Cola. Before I even get to the store, I should have a heat map of the store that says exactly how much by SKU I've got. So what do I need to bring into my truck? I don't have to come in and take inventory first. I don't have to go fill out the back room with a product because I just want to make sure that's all there. I have the opportunity to create and deliver product directly to the associate. That to me is one of the visions that I would have if you share that data with the CPG companies.
Yeah, it's really, really close. I mean, I've seen from the R&D team, I've seen solutions of what we call the digital twin. So really, I mean, that tells you, I mean, that's looking at the store as it is really now with the cameras and the sensors, which are remapping automatically the entire store in 3D. And that can tell you where the hotspots are, where the outs are. Yep. And on the shelf, but on the macro as well as on the micro, and all of that being redesigned completely automatically. This is, I mean, you have to see that, by the way, it's pretty awesome. Yeah. But but it's really like we have the cameras taking the pictures, and then the cameras know their positioning in the store on the footprint, and they're building a 3D view of the store where you can walk in and see the actual shelf. So the fact that we can do that is well, I mean, it's cool to see that. I mean, but it also implies that we have a level of data which can be shared and which are completely actionable. Where in the store, think about differently. Think about your consumer. Well, I'm looking for my Coke. I don't know where it is, and then I go on the retailer app, and I say I tap Coke, and then the system tells me turn right, turn left, and you're there. Yep. And by the way, and it's on the shelf. Yep. And so that is a huge gain. Same thing for the personal shoppers. We talk about e-com. One of there are two areas where the technology is bringing a revolution to e-com. First of all, well, I mean, being able to tell a consumer if a product is out at the time of placing the order. So I mean, that will be understanding it won't be refilled by then. That might be a strategy. But even more importantly, making sure that the personal shoppers is notified of all the exceptions before it starts its tour. So because what's extremely expensive when you have personal shoppers in the store, which are building the baskets, is every exception requires a quite complex decision-making process. Do we substitute, or first of all, do we have it in the store?
Yep.
If we don't have it, if we have it in the store, we need to call someone, go and check and things like that. If we and then the personal shopper is not producing sometime. If the product's not in the store, what do we do? Do we just scratch it, or do we substitute? What do we substitute with? So the process is complicated. So removing that exception management from the personal shopper store is a huge benefit for the retailers and the shoppers in general.
Got it.
So yeah, it's part of it. Yeah.
Okay. So another great question from our friend JW. Outside of the retail store, think more upstream in the supply chain, warehouses, distribution centers, et cetera. Do you also see opportunities, AI or computer vision AI opportunities in those locations as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that computer vision and AI is the next revolution. It's a huge technical revolution for many areas. I focus on retail because I've been there for 20 years and I'm lazy. I don't want to change. But but if you think about it, take the Teslas. They have massive computer vision everywhere. In the warehouse, yes, of course you can go in the warehouse. For example, we are working in little autonomous stores, but for B2B, for warehouses. For example, we have a client which is a manufacturer of plumbing hardware, and they put those little pots. It's like in a container. They put them everywhere in the country where the plumbers can go and scan, get in, take whatever they want, get out. Mm-hmm. And the idea here is the fact that we have computer vision. There is scales waiting for the nuts and bolts, because with computer vision, that's the limit. So, and this is where we start having the different technology. And we also have the price tag on it, because every time they scan, in less than 30 seconds, the entire store prices are refreshed to their own price, because they have negotiated price. So right. It's a B2B exception. In the warehouses, you're gonna find a lot of technologies which are, again, scales, the tags, the blinking. You mentioned the blinking, the pick to light. There are a lot of technologies that are going to be used. Computer vision can be used to detect defaults on the shelf, to say, there's a screw missing. There are things missing, and this is when, and in a different environment, you can also think about a different process. Drones might be a good solution. If you have a drone that have like a regular tour, checking all the fixtures, checking the inventory on the third or fourth row, and those kind of things. That's absolutely. This is not. It's not 10 years from now. It's now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, believe it or not, we're almost out of time. It feels like we just got started. Let me ask you one kind of final question. The question is, and this is one of my favorite questions at the end: what's hot right now? What's a question that I should have asked you, but I didn't? Right. So, what's on your mind, or any closing thoughts that you might have, or anything that you'd like to share that wasn't necessarily a question that you got asked?
Well, my conviction is that in the years to come, technology will drive the acceleration of the evolution toward you like the word or not, but a phygital retail store, like a very highly digitalized physical store, which is fast, efficient, and convenient. We have. Today we've talked a lot about how we improve the process in the store. I think we didn't talk too much about the customer experience, and we implied it. If you find your product on the shelf, you have better experience. Yeah. But I think a lot of the technology will be geared toward customer experience. The store of the future will be both a showroom for the clients to find new experiences and a storage for the e-com to be able to fulfill the orders, and therefore, you need to marry those two visions, and how you transform your customer experience in the store is definitely what's going to determine the winners from the losers tomorrow.
Fascinating. Yeah, we didn't even scratch the surface of the customer journey, but at the end of the day, that's why we're all trying to make sure the products are available for them. when and where they want them. So Pierre, thank you so much. I know you're a little bit jet lagged. You've been on a plane all day. You just got back into Atlanta. You're home. We definitely appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. Boy, computer vision, AI, the things that you're doing are really, really breakthrough. And it's really exciting to see the digitization of the store shelf really come to life. So we thank you for that very much. We'll have your LinkedIn bio as part of our podcast out there. So if people want to get in touch with you for any reason, they can do that. So thank you very much. Have a great weekend. And again, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mike. Have fun.
All right. Bye-bye. Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Pierre regarding computer vision and what they're doing at 1retailAI. Please join us next time when we are joined by Steve Slatter. He is the Chief Marketing Officer of Wiliot Technology. He'll be talking a lot about how Bluetooth-enabled RFID technology can be used in the online or offline retail supply chain. Join us then.